Hi everyone, my name's Sabrina and I'm here to help you as much as I can. I'll be mostly focusing on English and literature and deciphering long essays and journal articles and books that you might have trouble with deciphering yourself. These things may seem like they're written in a different language, but once they've been explained to you by someone else in a normal, colloquial way, then they seem much less threatening and much more doable. First things first, we're going to look at Louis Althusser and his work on the ideal and the subject and the ideology. Now this is basically the basis for all kind of interpretations that we do in literature and in English. This is a very important base, and it's important that you understand it before you start doing it. So basically Althusser looks at the ideological superstructure and looks at how we're all subjects in this world and how we've all been interpolated into believing things that may or may not be true, and how we've all been conditioned by society. So in part 1 he says that all ideological state apparatuses contribute to the same result, the reproduction of all retails of production. Now, the first thing that you might be confused about is the ideological state apparatuses. Now, the ideological state apparatuses are the private-owned institutions, such as the church, the media, the education system. Now, the education system, you might be like, that's not privately owned, but in terms of its function is that they condition us or interpolate us, and that's a term that he uses quite regularly, and it's a big term in his work and also in reading any kind of material that you're looking at, or looking at any kind of way that literature or it influences society at all. You might have been brought up with any kind of religious belief. That is a way of interpolating, and now I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I'm not saying that religion is a bad thing, or being brought up like that is a bad thing. I'm just saying that this is the term that he used to say that this is what you've been taught to think, basically. And it's same with the education system. So the education system has also taught you to think on certain things. I'm not saying that that's wrong. I'm not saying that 2 + 2 does not equal 4. But they haven't conditioned you to think certain things. And it might not just be the things that you're thinking about in terms of what you've learned, but also what you've been conditioned to behave like. So raising your hands when you've got the answer right, or when you behave well, you were rewarded. When you behave badly, or badly in their words, then you were punished. So that's a way of interpolating and conditioning the subjects. And the subjects are any kind of person that lives in the world, basically. You're a subject because you are subjected to any kind of interpolation. And even if you say, I'm completely off the grid, I completely reject any kind of interpolation, that in turn is also conditioning of a different kind, because you're also conditioned, but you're conditioned by the people who reject the conditioning. Very complicated, but basically you can't escape being conditioned to think stuff. No one is free completely of their will. This is not my opinion. I'm just deciphering Althusser's essay. Now, the repressive state apparatuses are the police, the army, the courts, the prisons. They function by violence, repression, incarceration. This is to do with anything that is punishing you, basically. Anything to keep the law system in order. So the repressive state apparatus is different from the ideological state apparatuses. So all ideological state apparatuses contribute to the same result, the reproduction of all relations of the production. Okay, so now we understand that first little bit of that paragraph. Not paragraph, sentence. All ideological state apparatuses contribute to the same result. So all the education system, all the media, all the religion systems contribute to the same thing. And then he says the second part of the sentence is the reproduction of the relations of production. The reproduction of the relations of productions means it keeps the system in place. So it reproduces the values that were already in production. So it reproduces what we've been conditioned to think from a long time ago. So it just reproduces and reproduces and reproduces those kind of mind frames and those kind of ideologies. They might change slightly. I'm not saying that values haven't changed over time, but that's what their main focus is to reproduce that kind of notion of the good person, the good citizen follows the rules, does this, does this, does this. The bad behaviour gets this, is punished, So we've been taught that. The media shows us that. They all work together to condition us in a certain way. And that is the reproduction of what the previous generations have been conditioned, which is a reproduction of what the previous generation has been conditioned to think. I'm not saying that it's a giant conspiracy, I'm just saying that they all work in the same way, which is what Althusser is trying to say. That they all condition these same kind of things and these same kind of processes and these same kind of ideologies. All ideological state apparatuses contribute to the same result, the reproduction of the relations of production. So all ideological state apparatuses, institutions, contribute to the same thing, the same result. The reproduction of the relations of production, the reproduction of values, the reproduction of ideology keeps the same system in action, keeps the same system maintained, keeps everybody on the same path that they have been on for a very long time. It's the first part of Althusser covered. That was only one sentence though. His essay is actually like 30 pages of... He does have some interesting stuff. He has some interesting stuff on gender, on sexuality, on a lot of different things. But this is the main purpose. This is the main ideas in his work. It's about the ideological state apparatuses, the repressive state apparatuses, contributing to the same production of values. And this is what we talk about when we're saying interpretation of a particular ideology. This is what we're talking about when we're saying ideology and subject of that ideology. We are all subjects of some kind of ideology. In most cases, it's a lot of the similar kind of ideology. But yeah, it's dependent on the society we live in. It's dependent on the state apparatuses that we've been brought up in. But it all kind of accumulates to be a very similar thing. So that was my first part of Althusser's essay. I'm happy to do more. I probably will do more of this on him because his stuff is very, very dense. It's very, very hard to get through. I had to read it about 100 times before I understood anything, and even then I had to ask for help. It's quite difficult, and it's very important to understand at the beginning before you start talking about ideology of any kind. So I will keep going with this, but this is all for today. So thank you very much for watching. Hope I've been helpful. Bye!